There, a few weeks later, Berthier fell from a window and was killed. It was most likely a simple accident.
Alright, Napoleon's Marshals, part 6, final part.
Terror belli decus.
I literally... I'm just skipping that
Battle
part.
of a Maréchal. You can visit their online store at napoleon-souvenirs.com, or if you're souvenirs.com for sponsoring this video. 3. Marshal Berthier.
No one else could replace him.
Alexandre Berthier was born at Versailles, 10 miles
Simple
from
quote.
Paris. His mother served at the palace as a chambermaid to the future Louis XVIII. His father was a colonel in the Topographical Engineers, a specialist corps of military surveyors. Berthier followed in his father's footsteps, joining the Topographical Engineers aged just 13, and was commissioned lieutenant at 17. He proved a talented and diligent staff officer. 10 years later, he accompanied General Rochambeau to America as part of French support to the colonists in their War of Independence.
Oh!
The British defeat at Yorktown.
Oh, wow! That's
French
actually
Revolution.
cool. I didn't know that.
Wars broke out. Berthier was a brigadier general with 25 years' service, who'd studied and given much thought to the problems of military organization and command. A reputation for outstanding staff work meant his services were in high demand, and he served as Chief of Staff to Rochambeau, Lafayette, and Luckner. But during the Terror, ties to these politically suspect generals put Berthier himself under the spotlight. He was stripped of his rank and not officially reinstated until 1795, when he became Chief of Staff of the Army of Italy. A Chief of Staff led the Staff Section, which was responsible for turning the general's orders into action, by drafting written instructions which were sent out by courier, as well as every aspect of army administration, ensuring efficient movement and supply, and collating reports on the enemy, terrain, roads, and anything else that might affect operations. Berthier, building on recent trends in French staff practice, now developed his own comprehensive staff organization. He established 3 sections: his personal office or cabinet, mostly skilled civilian clerks who handled troop movements, transcribed orders, filed reports, and collated intelligence on enemy forces. His private military staff, made up of aides-de-camp, liaison officers, and couriers. And the general staff itself, headed by the First Assistant Major General, also divided into 3 sections. The first dealt with additional troop movements, plus auxiliary services such as hospitals, military policing, prisoners of war, and security of supply lines.
You know, I'm not really saying nothing yet, because this is top 3. The parts that I did, the other people, especially Suchet, I'm not gonna say nothing yet.
The second section organized the army's
No, I want to
billets.
see. I want to see.
The third section was the topographical section, responsible for maps and reconnaissance. The general structure of Berthier's system changed little over the next 18 years and proved uniquely effective at handling the challenges posed by a new era of European warfare. Its chief beneficiary would be the Army of Italy's new commander, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon also discovered that his chief of staff possessed immense personal qualities, a heroic capacity for work, meticulous memory and attention to detail, and devotion to duty and discipline. Crucially, he had a gift for turning Napoleon's verbal, sometimes vague, commandments into clear, concise written orders that made sense to his officers and later marshals.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is a skilled ability right there.
Effective working relationship that would last until 1814. It relied on Berthier's complete acceptance of his subordinate role. He played no part in devising strategy, and never challenged or contradicted Napoleon except on points of logistical detail. When a friend queried his devotion to Napoleon, who was an extremely demanding and short-tempered boss, Berthier replied, "Remember that one day it will be a fine thing to be second to Bonaparte."
So you think you know.
Berthier's hard work and brilliant staff system underpinned all Napoleon's successes in Italy and beyond. They spent so much time together,
Wow.
Berthier was nicknamed Napoleon's wife. He was
Nah. Napoleon. I don't know how to feel about that one. Napoleon. Okay. Calm down. Calm down, man. What?
personally brave too, leading an attack at Lodi and a cavalry charge at Rivoli. But his genius was for staff work and administration, not army command, as he well knew. When he briefly inherited command of the Army of Italy in 1797, he begged Napoleon to return as soon as possible to take over.
Wow, so he wasn't really good
Played
at
a
commanding.
crucial role in planning Napoleon's Egyptian expedition of 1798, and master.
So basically, this guy is the one, like, he's really good at, like, I don't even know what to say, like, planning, I guess. Planning, laying out stuff. That's, like, equally as crucial, you know? But he's not good, like, actually, like, commanding.
Minded his famous crossing of the Alps in 1800, which saw French troops advance almost 100 miles through the mountains in just 8 days. The same year, Napoleon made Berthier Minister of War, putting him in charge of all French military administration. When Napoleon proclaimed his new empire in 1804, Berthier was the first name on the list of new marshals.
Of course!
Over all others. The next year, his role as Chief of Staff, or Major Général of the Grande Armée, was officially confirmed. In the fast-moving campaign of 1805, Berthier's system ensured Napoleon always had up-to-date information about the location and strength of his own forces, as well as the latest reports on enemy movements, from scouts, spies, and prisoners. Such advantages helped him achieve the stunning encirclement of Mack's Austrian army at Ulm. On campaign, Berthier and the Emperor often travelled together in the imperial coach, working without pause. His work was immense.
I swear, I need to go read some books on this. Yo. Y'all got some books for me to read on Napoleonic Wars? Actually, nah. If y'all know any books for me to read on like any type of history, really and truly, like do send me them. Send me them. Although I would instantly go and read them right now, because right now my life is very volatile, to say the least. But like eventually, when that volatile period is over with, like definitely I would love to go read up on a lot of this stuff more in detail from books and stuff, because a lot of I don't really like to play games. If I do make a gaming channel, which I did a vote and I said, hey, should I start a gaming channel, would you subscribe? Most of y'all said yes, but even then I wouldn't start a gaming channel right now, because even then this channel that I'm doing right here is still small. So yeah, so I don't really play games much. I'm kind of just fixated on just, frankly speaking, just like grinding right now. But when not, because there's a time and place for everything, right? So when that grind period of my life is done and over with, right? I'm definitely gonna have more free time, hopefully. Where I would definitely just love to go read up on a lot of this stuff on my own. So if you do know any good books, actually, do tell me.
But so too were the rewards. Following the victory at Austerlitz, Napoleon made Berthier the hereditary sovereign prince of Neuchâtel and Valenjean, with an enormous private income. Over the course of Napoleon's reign, he received endowments worth more than 1 million francs per year from the emperor, more than any other marshal.
Wow.
Yet Berthier remained a liability as a field commander. In 1809, Napoleon put him in temporary command of the army of Germany. When Archduke Charles made a bold advance into Bavaria, Berthier's response was hesitant and muddled, and nearly led to Marshal Davout's corps being encircled. Only Napoleon's arrival averted disaster.
Oh! Something that I've noticed about these marshals is that they have one good trait. Like, they're super good at one thing, but then the other thing is they're just garbage.
As Chief of Staff, Berthier once more proved his exceptional talents, coordinating the movement of 200,000 men and paving the way for the Emperor's victory at Wagram.
That's just what he's good at.
Prince of Wagram was added to his honors.
Florida.
The invasion of Russia in 1812 was a test like no other for Marshal Berthier and his staff. It required coordinating the movement of 500,000 troops, the biggest army ever seen in Europe, across a 400-mile front. "A simple private is happier than I," Berthier complained. "I am being killed by all this work." By August, it was clear the Grande Armée's supply lines were at breaking point, and Berthier was among those who tried to persuade Napoleon to halt the advance at Smolensk.
Bro! Are you kidding me? Berthier. Like, come on, Berthier, he's a genius at this. Okay, Berthier is telling you to stop. You need to stop. Come on now. This is why I said, like, Napoleon ego, bro. His ego, bro. His ego just bit more than he could chew.
He was ignored.
Of course he was.
Disaster engulfed the army. Berthier continued to perform his duty. By the end of the retreat, he was marching on foot with frostbitten fingers. To return to Paris without him, he wept openly. Despite his own poor health in the wake of the retreat, Berthier worked hard to salvage the remnants of the army. He served throughout the campaign in Germany in 1813. By now, Napoleon's enemies had reformed their own army general staffs, partly inspired by Berthier's example. But neither Berthier nor his...
You know you're good at what you're doing when your enemies are copying you. That's how you know you're at the top.
In May, a confusing order to Marshal Ney contributed to his late arrival at the Battle of Bautzen, and a missed chance to crush the coalition army.
Oh, wow.
Berthier was also notorious for his jealousies and grudges. His pedantic vendetta against Jomini, Ney's talented chief of staff, drove him to defect to the Russians. Berthier must also bear some blame for the disastrous end to the Battle of Leipzig. He knew there weren't enough bridges for the army to retreat safely, but failed to press the matter with Napoleon.
Okay. Let's play devil's advocate here. Napoleon probably would have ignored him. I don't know how Napoleon's personality was like in 1813. I don't know. Frankly speaking, if you disagree with me, disagree with me. I don't know. Go tell me something that I don't know. This is why I always encourage that.
The bridge out of the city was blown too early. 30,000 men became prisoners.
30,000 men that could have been used in the defense of France.
Berthier continued to serve Napoleon faithfully through the desperate defense of France until the Emperor's abdication in April 1814. The restored Bourbon monarchy showered titles and honors on Berthier. The king even gave him an honorary rank in his own guard.
Wow!
Napoleon's return from exile 11 months later put him in an impossible situation, torn both ways by his sense of duty and loyalty. He accompanied the king on his flight to the Netherlands, but was treated with such suspicion by the royal court that he left for his wife's family estate in Bavaria.
Oh, wow.
There, a few weeks later, Berthier fell from a window and was killed. It was most likely a simple accident, though some believe he killed himself out of guilt or despair, or, less plausibly, was murdered by French royalist agents.
Hey, bro. Yo, is that where Putin got his inspiration from? There's like this running joke where it's like, hey bro, if you say something bad against the Russian government, don't stand near the windows. Don't stand near the windows. Or like, if someone does say something about the Russian government, I see people say, oh no, she's gonna fall off a window, or he. Nah, bro. I think this is where Putin got that inspiration from.
Napoleon had expected Berthier to rejoin him in 1815 and was scathing of his absence. I have been betrayed by Berthier, who was just a gosling transformed by me into some kind of eagle. But after his defeat at Waterloo, in which mismanaged staff work played an important role,
of course,
Napoleon conceded, if Berthier had been there, I would not have met this misfortune.
Poor Napoleon.
None of Murat's glamour, nor Ney's heroism, nor the tactical instincts of Davout. But he was the indispensable marshal, whose brilliant administration and tireless work were the foundation for so much of Napoleon's military success. Two.
I can see why he's number 3.
Marshal
Yeah,
Lannes.
I can see.
Jean Lannes was a farmer's son from Gascony.
Bro, when Lannes
His
died,
job was a dyer's
oh
apprentice. He
dude,
joined the local volunteer battalion.
when
in
Lannes died,
1792.
man, oof, man.
Energetic and charismatic, he was immediately elected to be an officer by his comrades. The unit was sent to fight the Spanish on the Eastern Pyrenees front, where Lannes proved a brave and active officer. He distinguished himself in several actions and was promoted to command the regiment. Lannes was then transferred to Italy as part of General Augereau's division, where his bold, aggressive leadership won praise from General Massena and then a dago from General Bonaparte himself, who rewarded Lannes with command of a grenadier brigade in the army's advance guard. A month later, at the Battle of Lodi, Colonel Lannes was first across the river, leaping off the bridge and wading ashore under enemy fire. At the Battle of Arcolay, he was wounded twice, but when he heard the French were retreating, he left the dressing station to lead a fresh attack, which probably saved Napoleon from capture or worse. Napoleon later presented
Clutch,
the flag he
man,
waved at the
clutch,
battle,
man.
and a special bond was formed between them, based on mutual respect and loyalty. Lannes was promoted to Brigadier General, and in 1798 joined Napoleon's expedition to Egypt. He played a prominent role in the campaign, helping to suppress the revolt in Cairo and leading the assaults on Jaffa and Acre, where he was shot in the neck and only saved from certain death by his men, who carried him back to safety.
Well, he wasn't supposed to die there.
At the
Not yet. He had 11 years.
infantry
11 years left.
to inflict a crushing defeat on the Ottoman army. While recovering from his latest wounds in this battle, Lannes received painful news from home. His wife had given birth to another man's child.
Bro. 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 Even back then, man, you weren't safe. You weren't safe. You weren't safe back then. I'm not gonna talk too much about it here because that's not what my channel is about. But even back then, you weren't safe from that happening to you. Wow.
He returned to France with Napoleon in October and divorced his wife not long after. When Napoleon staged his coup of 18 Brumaire, Lannes helped to ensure the army's loyalty. The next spring, Napoleon's army marched over the Alps into Italy. Lannes' vanguard led the way, and at Montebello encountered an Austrian force that outnumbered it 2-1. Lannes was able to win a brilliant victory thanks to crucial support from General Victor. Just 5 days later, his division played a key role in Napoleon's great victory at Marengo. Lannes never forgot a favour. He and Victor remained firm friends. But he also never forgot a grudge, was notoriously short-fused, and quick to perceive an insult. In 1800, Lannes remarried to Louise Antoinette Guernuc, daughter of a senator, with whom he'd have 5 children.
Damn! Damn! Lannes! Okay, Lannes. 5 kids. Lannes. Jeez. Lannes was knocking her up a lot. Hey, I get it though. I get it. Okay, after you hear that your wife gave birth to a child from another man, I get it, Lannes. All right, gotta take out that energy on someone else.
Appointed commander of Napoleon's consular guard, but he was dismissed after General Bessières helped expose his mismanagement of the budget, for which Lannes never forgave him. In semi-disgrace, Lannes was sent as ambassador to Portugal, a short, eventful spell in which, against expectation, his soldierly manner won over Portugal's Prince Regent. By 1804, it was clear that all was forgiven. Lannes received news that he'd been made a Marshal of the new French Empire and orders to return to Paris for Napoleon's coronation. The following year, he took command of 5th Corps of the Grande Armée, forming the vanguard for the advance against the Austrian army in Bavaria. Lannes had to work closely with Marshal Murat, a bitter rival since a falling out in Egypt, but they put their differences aside. Together, they bluffed an Austrian commander into surrendering a vital Danube bridge by persuading him that an armistice had been signed. At one point, Lannes even snatched the fuse from a soldier's hand as he prepared to light the explosive charges.
Wow.
Before the Battle of Austerlitz, Lannes' quick temper got the better of him. He demanded to fight a duel with Marshal Soult, who in his eyes had made him look foolish in front of the Emperor. Soult ignored the challenge.
Oh! And now you look even more foolish.
At Papa John's.
In the battle that followed, Lannes' 5th Corps held the left flank against Bagration's attacks, later pushing forward with the cavalry to help take 7,000 Russian prisoners. After the battle, Lannes was infuriated that Soult, and not he, was singled out for praise by the Emperor. Within days, Lannes had resigned his command and returned to France. In 1806, with tempers cooled, Napoleon summoned Lannes to rejoin the army for the war with Prussia. Back in command of 5th Corps, Lannes was as active, aggressive and brilliant as ever. At Saalfeld, he fought the first major combat of the war, routing a Prussian division commanded by Prince Louis Ferdinand. 4 days later, at Jena, Lannes opened the main French attack at dawn, with General Suchet's division in the lead. For 6 hours, his troops were engaged in furious fighting for the villages on the plateau, until finally, the Prussian resistance was broken. By December, the war had moved into Poland. Lannes attacked a larger Russian force at Pultusk, but it was a bloody, indecisive affair. Wounds and fever then forced him to convalesce in Warsaw, and so miss the Battle of Eylau. That spring, Lannes resumed command of the advance guard, as Napoleon sought out Bennigsen's Russian army, hoping to force a decisive battle. When Bennigsen located Lannes' apparently isolated corps near Friedland, he attacked. He expected an easy victory, but Lannes, with support from future marshals Oudinot and Grouchy, expertly used his troops to fend
Where is Grouchy? Sorry,
the Russians.
I had to say that.
Raced to join him with the main army. Lannes' delaying tactics allowed Napoleon to catch the Russian army with its back to the river and inflict a crushing defeat. The following year, Lannes was ennobled as Duke of Montebello and joined Napoleon for the invasion of Spain, despite suffering a serious riding injury en route. Taking command of Marshal Moncey's Third Corps, Lannes routed a Spanish army at the Battle of Tudela, sending the enemy fleeing in two directions. He was then given command of the siege of Zaragoza. Spanish soldiers and civilians defended the city with legendary courage, but Lannes' leadership and methodical house-by-house approach ensured ultimate victory at a high price. Even Lannes was left shaken by the savagery of the fighting, writing to Napoleon, "Sire, this is a horrifying war." Napoleon recalled Lannes.
Yeah, Spain was brutal.
In 1809.
I mean, I'm not really like reacting much because I'm like so numb. I mean, if you haven't already, go check out my other actual Napoleonic Wars in chronological order. I'm already numb to it all. I'm just like, yep, it was brutal. You know?
His provisional corps formed the vanguard for Napoleon's...
I still want to see why he was
quick victories
number
over the
2.
Austrians that culminated in the Battle of Egmont. Napoleon next needed Regensburg taken quickly, and so, as usual, he turned to Lannes. After the first assault wave was mown down, Lannes' call for volunteers went unanswered. Furious, he picked up a scaling ladder and shouted, "I'll show you that before I was a marshal, I was a grenadier, and still am."
Exactly. Show him, Lannes.
Forward, his aides grabbed the ladder from him, reorganized the men, and led a successful attack. After occupying Vienna, Napoleon ordered his army to cross the Danube in pursuit of the Austrians. Marshals Lannes and Massena led the way across improvised bridges, supported by Marshal Bessieres' cavalry. It was soon clear that Napoleon had miscalculated and that they faced not just an Austrian rearguard, but the full might of Archduke Charles's army. Massena held the village of Aspern, while Lannes organized the defense of Essling. But desperately needed reinforcements and ammunition were held up as the Austrians floated obstacles downriver to smash the fragile bridges. Lannes' old rival, Marshal Bessieres, was placed under his temporary command. Lannes sent repeated orders for him to charge the enemy, in language that verged on an accusation of cowardice, and that evening the two marshals nearly came to blows. The next day, Lannes' corps led an attack on the Austrian centre, but was driven back by the weight of enemy fire. The French-held villages were under constant, pulverizing bombardment. Around 4 p.m, Lannes' old friend, General Pouzet, was hit by a cannonball and killed in front of him. Lannes, badly shaken, walked off to sit alone for a moment, when a cannonball skipped along the ground and smashed both his legs. Lannes was...
So you're telling me... Bro... Oh, so that's how he... Oh, wow, bro, that's actually sad. Like, bro was traumatized and then... Oh, that's actually really awful.
Was carried to the rear and placed in the care of the Grande Armée's most famous surgeon, Baron Larrey. Larrey quickly decided that he must amputate one leg. The operation went well, but the wound became infected and Lannes died 9 days later. Napoleon, who had visited Lannes every day, wept at news of his death. What a loss for France. And for me.
It's sad because, he was oh my gosh. But that's actually...
Then he wrote to Lannes' wife. The Marshal has died this morning of the wounds he received on the field of honor. My pain equals yours. I lost the most distinguished general in my army and a companion in arms for 16 years, whom I considered my best friend. Marshal Lannes' death was a great blow to Napoleon and the army. He had proved himself an outstanding commander, as brave as Ney, with the military mind of Soult, the marshal who led Napoleon's vanguard in 4 of his greatest campaigns. His remarkable soldiering skills would be sorely missed by the Emperor in the challenging years that lay ahead.
Oh yeah. Bro, I feel like Napoleon's like... Oh, dude, these men, man. Where were these men when Napoleon needed them the most? Obviously, dead. But
Marshal Davout. Louis-Nicolas Davout was born into a noble family from Burgundy, with a tradition of military service that went back to the Crusades. At 15, he was sent to the military school in Paris, just missing a young Napoleon Bonaparte, who'd graduated a few weeks before.
oh wow.
In 1788, Davout was commissioned into the Royal Champagne Cavalry Regiment. But within a year, his vocal support for the French Revolution had got him into deep trouble. He was forced
Bad
to
boy.
and spent 6 weeks in prison.
Bad boy.
In
Davout.
1791, Davout joined a local volunteer battalion and was elected its deputy commander. The next year,
I'm actually very curious to hear about Davout because I was reading, because I do this sometimes, where I'm curious about like a certain scenario or something happening. I was thinking about Waterloo. I was just reading up on what other people thought about how Napoleon could have probably won Waterloo, although technically there were some things that he could have done, but still, I was still reading up on it, and I saw a lot of people saying Davout, if Davout was there, Waterloo would have went a lot differently, and that Davout was like the best marshal. So I'm like, okay, well,
Austria and Prussia.
Let's see.
And Davout soon proved himself a brave, highly organized and energetic officer. He also won praise for attempting to prevent his commanding officer, General Dumouriez, defecting to the Austrians, though he was not successful. The incident did speed Davout's promotion to brigadier general. But the revolution was now entering its most extreme phase. A new law barred ex-aristocrats from the army, and Davout had to resign his commission once more. A year passed before he was reinstated, with command of a cavalry brigade in the army of the Moselle. He led a series of daring operations against the Austrians, winning particular praise from General Desaix, who became a close friend. In 1798, Desaix introduced Davout to his friend, General Bonaparte. Napoleon was not at first impressed. Davout was aloof, untidy and awkward. Napoleon even described him as a damn brute. But he did trust Desaix's judgment, and gave Davout a command in his army bound for Egypt. It was a tough campaign for Davout, who caught dysentery in Cairo, but he further demonstrated his military skill, winning a series of skirmishes on Desaix's expedition into Upper Egypt, and later leading a successful assault on the town of Abu Qir. Soon after their return to France, General Desaix was killed at the Battle of Marengo, robbing Davout of a close friend and patron. However, Napoleon had been won over by Davout's performance in Egypt. He now promoted him General of Division, and appointed him Inspector General of Cavalry. Napoleon also encouraged Davout to marry Amy Leclerc, Pauline Bonaparte's sister-in-law, bringing Davout within the first consul's extended family. It proved a
How many of these marshals were in Napoleon's family? What the heck?
loving marriage and a great source of strength to Davout in the years ahead. In 1803, Davout was given command of the camp of Bruges, where troops were preparing for the invasion of England. Here he established his reputation as an exceptional administrator and hard taskmaster, enforcing discipline and regular training, while paying attention to his soldiers' welfare and sacking officers who didn't meet his high standards.
Let's talk about the invasion of England real quick. So, I remember I was watching a documentary on the Napoleonic Wars before, and it was a documentary on the Napoleonic Wars. It was on was it Nelson? It was on Lord Nelson and was it Vilna? Bro, I forgot his name. I think it was like it started with a V. Okay, when Napoleon ordered him to bait Nelson and whatnot. But anyways, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I saw a lot of historians who debate that Napoleon wasn't planning on invading England. He just used that to just amass a big army to deal with Austria and Central Europe into what would become Austerlitz, right? Because they were saying, well, before Napoleon was at peace with the Austrians and basically like most of Central Europe at the time, but again, basically just a perfect excuse. Hey, we're gonna invade England. We need a big army. Oh, looks like we can't invade England, but we have a big army. Wow, what a coincidence. Looks like I got an army that I can use to deal with the Austrians and everyone else, right? I was like, that's actually an interesting argument, to say the least. I don't know, just tell me what you think, though.
In 1804, Napoleon proclaimed a new French empire, and Davout, aged 34, became the youngest of its new marshals. His inclusion was a surprise to many, especially as he'd still not commanded anything larger than a brigade in battle.
Oh, wow.
It's very likely that the deaths of Davout's patron, Desaix, and brother-in-law Leclerc cleared a path for him. The next year, Davout's troops became 3rd Corps of the Grande Armée and marched east to take on the 3rd Coalition. On the eve of the Battle of Austerlitz, Davout force-marched his corps 70 miles in 2 days, arriving at dawn on Napoleon's right flank. His troops went straight into action, holding off a powerful coalition attack, buying time for Napoleon's decisive move against the enemy centre. It was a remarkable performance by 3rd Corps, soon eclipsed by an even greater feat of arms the next year in the war against Prussia. As Napoleon concentrated his forces at Jena to attack what he believed was the main Prussian army, he ordered Davout's 3rd Corps and Bernadotte's 1st Corps to cut off their retreat. But 10 miles north of Napoleon, near Auerstedt, Davout ran straight into the main Prussian army. With no sign of support from Marshal Bernadotte's 1st Corps, Davout's 26,000 men faced odds of more than 2 to 1.
The Iron Marshal!
Handling of his troops enabled 3rd Corps to repel the Prussian onslaught.
The Iron Marshal!
Stabilized, Davout went on the offensive and routed the enemy army. That was a stunning victory, won at a high price. 1 in 4 of Davout's men were either killed or wounded.
Still, that's
Napoleon heard
wild.
reports,
I think that's the craziest thing
"Your
I've
marshal
heard.
must have been seeing double," he told his aide-de-camp, making a joke of Davout's spectacle wearing. When the report was confirmed, he sent a message back to Davout. "Tell the marshal that he, his generals and his troops have gained everlasting claims on my gratitude." He later gave Third Corps the honor of being the first troops to enter Berlin. The next year, at Eylau, Davout's corps again played a pivotal role, trying to turn the Russian flank. When his men were driven back, Davout rallied them, shouting, "The cowards will die in Siberia, the brave will die on the field of honor."
Hey, facts. Facts. Okay, you're already here. You have nowhere else to go. It's either this or you're gonna die anyways, but in a worse. Okay, in a worse manner.
Third Corps could not break through, but its tenacity helped persuade the Russians to retreat that night. Following the peace treaty of Tilsit, Davout became Governor-General of the new Duchy of Warsaw, where he oversaw the recruitment and training of Polish troops. In 1808, he was ennobled as Duke of Austerlitz. But for all his military prowess, Davout was not a popular figure. Notoriously tough, his troops respected rather than loved him, while several marshals were irritated by his air of superiority and blunt manner. In 1809, with war looming with Austria, Davout rejoined Third Corps at Regensburg. When Archduke Charles advanced into Bavaria, the army's temporary commander, Marshal Berthier, nearly left Davout to be cut off. As soon as Napoleon arrived, he ordered Davout to withdraw. It was almost too late, but with immense skill, Davout and Third Corps were able to fight their way clear and rejoin the army. Davout played a major part in the counter-offensive that followed, known as the Four-Day Campaign, pinning Austrian forces at Egmul, until Napoleon arrived to deliver the decisive blow.
The best part about
A month later, at the Battle of Aspern, Davout and Third Corps never made it across the river. The Marshal's role was limited to trying to sort out the crisis at the bridges, until the French were forced to withdraw. When the army crossed the Danube again 6 weeks later, Davout was in his usual post on the right wing. On the first day of the Battle of Wagram, the Emperor criticized Davout for his slow attack. But the Iron Marshal, as he was now known, was saving his men for what he knew lay ahead. The next day, Davout's troops fought off a major Austrian dawn assault, then launched their own attack, gradually driving in the enemy left flank, helping to make Austrian retreat inevitable. Davout and his corps had emerged from another major campaign as heroes. The grateful Napoleon bestowed on him a new title, Prince of Egmul. For a few years there was peace in Central Europe. Davout spent most of it in Hamburg, in his new role as Governor-General of the Hanseatic cities, cracking down on corruption and illegal trade with Britain.
Funny, because I had people tell me that Napoleon just decided to trade with Britain anyways.
In 1812, Napoleon entrusted him with the enormous task of organizing the Grande Armée for the invasion of Russia. Davout's First Corps alone was 72,000 strong, as big as Napoleon's entire army at Austerlitz. When it crossed the Niemen River in June, its troops were so well turned out that one observer compared them to the Imperial Guard itself.
Wow.
Davout's giant corps was the spear tip of Napoleon's invasion. He mauled Bagration's Second Army at Saltanovka, but could not prevent its escape. 3 weeks later, his troops were in the thick of the fighting at Smolensk. But Davout's lack of allies among the other marshals began to show. Many were keen to see him taken down a peg or two, including Napoleon's Chief of Staff, Marshal Berthier.
Oh, wow.
Even the Emperor himself.
What? Davout, how many enemies do you
Who
have?
got into a row with Marshal Murat, whom he regarded as incompetent. Napoleon decided in Murat's favour, giving him one of Davout's divisions. On the eve of the Battle of Borodino, the Emperor dismissed Davout's request to outflank the Russian defences. "You are always for turning the enemy," he told him. "It is too dangerous a movement." In the bloody battle that followed, Davout's corps led the frontal attack on the Flèche earthworks. The Marshal himself was injured when his dying horse rolled over him, but remained on the field directing the attack, which was ultimately successful. 6 weeks later, the Grande Armée began its infamous retreat from Moscow. The remains of Davout's corps was ordered to form the rearguard, but he was criticized for moving too slowly. Near Vyazma, a gap opened up, and Russian General Miloradovich pounced. First Corps was routed and saved only by the quick intervention of Marshal Ney, Eugène and Poniatowski. Ney's corps took over as rearguard, but when he became cut off at Krasny, Davout was widely blamed for not turning back to rescue him, even though it would have been suicidal. The moment highlighted the gulf in charisma between a marshal like Ney, who was loved by the troops, and Davout, who was not. Davout began the 1830s.
You know, it's funny because he wasn't loved, but I still understand his mindset. How do I know this? Because there's a lot of people that dislike me. A lot of people. Heck, I could even go as far as to say there's a lot of people on my channel that will eventually dislike me. And it's already slowly starting to happen. But I don't really care, frankly speaking. Because when you know that you're on the right track, well, it doesn't really matter. And, well, lo and behold, and keep in mind this is from Epic History TV. Epic History TV ranked him as the best marshal. So everyone hated him, but guess what? He turned out to be number one, right? In Epic History TV's opinion, of course. Still, that still shows a lot. I mean, it still shows how capable the guy was, despite people's personal opinion of him, right? Ney was charismatic, of course, but look at what he did at Waterloo, right? He really messed up. But actually, no, Ney was probably the reason why Napoleon lost at Waterloo. So,
13 campaign holding Dresden. But when Hamburg was raided by Russian Cossacks, Napoleon sent him north to organize the city's defense. Exactly why Napoleon kept his best marshal in Hamburg while a decisive campaign raged in Saxony continues to puzzle historians.
Yeah, so a lot of historians, they even agree that he was the best, despite the fact that so many people dislike him. Look, man, moral of the story, if you dislike someone over petty reasons, put it aside and look at things objectively. Yeah, that's the moral of the story. Look at things objectively.
Davout was a stern and effective governor of Hamburg, securing the lower Elbe River and Napoleon's strategic northern flank. He organized a new 13th Corps and, following Napoleon's defeat at Leipzig, withstood a 6-month siege. Davout only surrendered Hamburg in May 1814. After confirmation arrived of Napoleon's abdication. But what difference the Iron Marshal might have made at Bautzen, Dennewitz, Leipzig or Long remains a tantalizing what if. Davout was not welcomed into the restored Bourbon regime like other marshals. His loyalty to Napoleon was despised by the ultra-royalists. Instead, he was forced into retirement and put under police surveillance. When Napoleon returned to France in 1815, Davout and Lefebvre were the only marshals waiting to greet him at the Tuileries Palace.
Wow.
But once again, Napoleon gave Davout a role which, in hindsight, seems a disastrous waste of his ability. Davout was made Minister of War and Governor of Paris. Vital roles requiring a brilliant and loyal administrator, and Davout worked miracles to raise a new army for Napoleon's final campaign. But if Davout, not Grouchy, had commanded the Emperor's right wing in 1815, who knows what might have been. Following the Emperor's defeat at Waterloo, Davout organized the defense of Paris and urged Napoleon to fight on. Later accepting that he must abdicate, Davout ensured Napoleon's safe passage to the coast and submitted to the Bourbons. The Royalists had promised Davout that his officers would not be prosecuted for their conduct. He was furious to discover these assurances would not be honoured.
Of course.
So testified on behalf of Marshal Ney, but could not save him from a firing squad. Davout was stripped of his rank and income, though they were restored 2 years later, thanks to the intercession of Marshal MacDonald. Davout shunned court, as he always had. His health was failing, and in 1821, the death of his eldest daughter left him grief-stricken. He died 2 years later of tuberculosis, aged 53. Davout, the youngest and least proven of Napoleon's marshals, proved the most capable of all. Cool under fire and a brilliant tactician, he was the ideal corps commander in battle. A superb administrator, he was a stern and loyal deputy for the Emperor in Poland and Germany. His main weakness was his severe and blunt manner, which won...
Severe and blunt... Bro, he kept it real. He kept it real, right? That's how I am with people. I just keep things real with people. But it comes to the point where I just realize that so many people are gonna hate you so much for that I don't really say nothing no more. What I mean, I don't say nothing no more. I mean, I just don't speak to people I don't feel like talking to anymore because I don't feel like wasting my time on these people. Okay, and that's frankly speaking most people. Okay, and that's one of the main reasons why I decided to go and make this YouTube channel, so I can say wherever the heck I want and be blunt to whoever the heck I want. And as long as I don't really curse, as long as I, frankly speaking, abide by YouTube's guidelines and policies, yeah, no one really can't do nothing about that, frankly speaking. So he was just realistic, and because he was realistic, he turned out to be the best marshal. Why? Because he was realistic.
Few friends, and left some even wishing to see him fail.
Exactly. I've had plenty of people that want to see me fail, and that will never happen. I didn't have few friends. I have friends, but I have few friends.
Not something they saw from the Iron Marshal very often.
Alright.
So concludes.
I'm out. Go check out my other reactions on my channel. Tomorrow is gonna be a good reaction. Good reaction. So yeah, stick around for that at least. It's gonna be a World War II. World War II. Germany couldn't win World War II by that garbage YouTube channel, Potential History. So go stick around for that. I gotta go. Okay, I gotta go. Make sure you subscribe and like the video. Okay, if you like what I have to say, go check out my other reactions. Goodbye.